Hello and welcome to the Everyone Has a Story podcast. I'm back in my sophomore year at college. I'm number one on the men's tennis team. Now, let me go back a little bit. I earned the right to be in the top two positions on the team, but because of an unforeseen circumstance, I was given the title of number one on the men's tennis team. Later to find out that we are not going to have any ongoing challenges to move up or down the ladder. Once the ladder was established in the fall, it was going to be that way for the entire year. Now, let me back up a little bit further. I am also now the summer between my freshman year at college and my sophomore year, and I grew virtually 6 inches. Now, in the world of sports, more specifically tennis, I had to do some very quick changes to my tennis game because all of a sudden I have a different body than what I had 4 or 5 months prior to that. So needless to say, I was struggling trying to figure out who I really was supposed to be on the tennis court because my body had changed very, very quickly. So that following spring, in the middle of our tennis season, I played 22 singles matches and I won one of them. Here, I'm the leader on the team, and I have 1 win and 21 losses. But on the other hand, I'm also 18 wins and 4 losses on the doubles court. So I think you can kind of see where I'm heading with this story is that I found that maybe my new game should be more of a specialty on the tennis doubles game as opposed to the tennis singles game. And so in the midst of all that and trying to find my new game, like I said, I had a terrible regular season, but now it's the state playoffs. Come to find out that I had to qualify to get into the tournament because I had the second worst record in the whole Northwest. The only guy worse than me is the guy that I beat. So he and I had to play each other in the opening round just to get into the main draw. I'm feeling better about my game, now that I'm towards the end of the season. So I beat him again. But then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, I felt a little bit extra charge in me, and I won my next 3 rounds. So now I'm actually in the semifinals of the Northwest tournament, where here I had to qualify to get in because I had such a terrible win-loss record. But now I'm in the semis. I get beat, but I got beat by the guy who should have beaten me. But at the same time, he also ended up being the state champion. I tell this story because in life, get past tennis and all the tears that I had through that awful season, in life, we have those same moments where we're trying to figure out, was my year a complete disaster, or was there something I can really hang my hat on and say I had success? If you look at the first part of the season, probably the answer is, hell no, you had a terrible season. But because I ended up, revalidating myself, I end up having a very, very good feeling about my overall season because I did catch up and I did, find my new game at the right time at the year-end tennis tournament. But now getting back to life, getting back to business, how do we measure success? How should we measure success? And who really validates if it's really success or not? It seems like our society, we've turned into, or we're allowing our inner circle, family, friends, colleagues, coworkers, you name it, we're allowing them to tell us, have we made it or not? Are we really successful or not? But really, when it comes down to it, first and foremost, we need to validate it ourselves. It should come from us that we say, yes, I feel good about what I'm doing. I can say that I'm a success. But how do we do that? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to introduce you to a scoreboard that's going to help you be able to measure your own levels of success. So that way, forget what anybody else says about you. You can go to bed every night knowing that, yes, you are feeling good. you can feel good because you have been successful in whatever you're measuring. So with me today is my good friend and my past guest speaker by a couple other podcasts, John Britton. So John, welcome back. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here.
So just as a reminder, John is the founder of Momentum Coaching, and he's the author of many books, but the one that that I most recently have fallen in love with is the book Presence. So, but we're not going to talk about presence really so much today. But anyway, John, welcome back, and why don't you quickly do another little introduction of yourself so everybody gets a chance to hear you talk.
Thanks, Roger. It's lovely to be here. Thanks for inviting me back. I come from a background of performance, originally theatre and then theatre and dance and circus and so on. I was a director, a performer originally, then a director, and then increasingly a teacher of performance all around the world. And there is a significant connection and overlap between the sort of work I did training people to use their bodies at the highest possible levels in performance and the way people are trained to use their bodies in sports. I'm not particularly a sports fan. I don't particularly follow any sports, but sports psychology and the understanding that the training of bodies in sports also involves the training of minds, the idea that motivation and validation you can't just rely on a coach shouting at you to get motivated. Elite sports requires sports people to be able to motivate themselves. These ideas were important for me as I developed Self with Others, which is the name of the approach I had to training performers. For the last couple of years, or nearly a decade now, I've been focusing on taking Self with Others outside the theatre space or the dance studio and exploring how what I know and have discovered through training performers at all levels, from the most simple community level through to elite level, what I have learned is applicable across every area of life. It's applicable in business, it's applicable in community development, in education, in activism, in politics, in etc., etc. So my passion now is really in making the links that what people who work at exceptional levels have to discover. Those lessons are lessons that every person in every sphere of life can embody, absorb, understand, and benefit from. I have a particular interest in teams and ensembles. In other words, not just how an individual develops, but how all of us are always interconnected and we thrive through a combination of competition within collaboration. We are always, in one way or another, collaborating with others.
Well, I can't thank you enough for joining me again today and collaborating as we have since we've met each other. So we're talking about Life Scoreboard. Let's first define what is that scoreboard. So what is your definition of Life Scoreboard?
Okay, well, I have an image in my head of a sports ground with a huge electronic scoreboard up there, which is kind of funny because the only time I've ever had anything to do really with sport was during the summer holidays at school, many, many years ago now. I would go and sit in a rickety old hut and operate the mechanical cricket scoreboard, where every time a run was, 4 runs were scored, you'd pull 4 times on the cord and a little number would flick round up on the scoreboard, and it was great. There were the sandwiches and the flask of tea. I think we need to go a little bit more sophisticated than that. So I think of a big scoreboard at a sporting ground, and immediately there's 3 things that are kind of important to understand what's happening with that scoreboard. First of all, there is the scoreboard communicates information to the general public, to the community, to the crowd, whoever it is. There's another thing, though. Somebody decides what information is going to be communicated. In other words, what's being valued. Some scoreboards or statistics that are given out only value one thing. They don't value the who did this or who did that. They only value who scored the goal. So part of designing a scoreboard is making decisions about what is being valued. And the third thing in a scoreboard is the person who is being valued or rewarded or validated, what they think or they feel about their performance. So somebody might go, yeah, I know on the scoreboard it says I scored 2 goals or I ran 200 yards or whatever, but I know I was having a dodgy game. Or I know my name's not on the scoreboard, but I played brilliantly and the team would not have won without me. So there's that internal scoreboard, that internal validation. So we can think of scoreboard in sort of 3 ways. What gets valued, and that's sort of that's the manager's job or the owner's job. What's being valued, what the crowd, the community see, and how the individual feels about their work. It brings to mind a story that, if you'll indulge me, I'll just remember. I tried to look up this story when I knew we were going to talk tonight, but I moved house a wee while ago and there's chaos here. There's boxes of books everywhere. I haven't got a hope of checking I've got it right. So if I got this story wrong, then, I hope people forgive me. But it goes something like this. The founder of what's called the theory of optimal experience or peak experience, which for short is called flow theory, is a psychologist called Csikszentmihalyi. Csikszentmihalyi was really interested in what's going on in the human mind when humans are happy. What is the psychology of pleasure? And as part of that, he was also interested in the psychology of motivation, what motivates people. And early on in his career, he only died last year, I think, but early on in his career in the 60s into the 70s, he did masses of research. And one of the ways he did research was that he used cutting edge technology in those days. He gave people pagers. So they'd have a little pager on their belt. And every now and again, 5 or 6 times a day, it would buzz. And when the pager buzzed, the person who was being buzzed would have to write down on a scale of 1 to 10 how happy they were and what it was they were doing. And that way he built up a picture of the relationship between people's activities and their state of mind. And he did loads of people, lawyers and, therapists and business people and so on. But when he came to analyze the results, he found that the happiest person, the most consistently happy person in his field research was some fella who worked on a production line in the factory. If I remember rightly, it was a car factory, but I'm not sure about that. And his job was literally an old-style factory worker. He stood in front of the conveyor belt and he picked something up and he turned a screw and he turned it round through 90 degrees and he hit it with a hammer and it moved on the conveyor belt, something like that. I don't know. Repetitive work. And Csikszentmihalyi said to him, how come you are so consistently, well, at worst, you're content, and some days you just seem super happy? And the guy said, well, I challenge myself. It takes me when I started this job, it took me about 12 seconds to do my job. And over the years, I've got that down to about 8.7, average 8.7 seconds. And I'm always thinking about how I could do this just slightly quicker. What if I relaxed my shoulder just a little bit? What if I reached with my left hand just before I reached with my right hand? It's endlessly fascinating. And when I actually get my average down by 0.1 of a second, man, that is amazing. Now, we think of those 3 scoreboards I mentioned. The management would have seen an efficient worker, but they wouldn't have known really, they wouldn't have noticed he'd got his time down by 0.1 of a second. They wouldn't really have validated that. People outside might go, oh, yeah, some would go, maximum respect, you're working in a factory, that's a great job. Others would go, well, that's not a very much of an achievement in life. People outside, you can't control what people think about you. And you've already mentioned this, his internal validation made all the difference. He was a really successful guy, really successful, because he put food on his family's table and he turned up to work and had a really enjoyable time and went home going, I wonder how I could do that slightly differently, do that slightly better. Now, that for me is successful, achieving what he needed to achieve and doing so in a way where he was number one on the scoreboard, the only scoreboard that really matters, which was the one inside himself.
That's a great story, and never shy away from telling stories on a podcast that's called Everyone Has a Story. Just because I know you'll be a guest speaker again here in the future, so never shy away from that. So we've come off some pretty horrible times worldwide with the pandemic, and we're seeing through the business community and just with people alone that we're doing a lot of thinking and processes and in topics that we never really thought so much about, but they just come to a head through the time off with the pandemic. So why is having that scoreboard, just like the gentleman that you talked about at the factory, why is it so relevant today, or more relevant today?
I think just that story, that understanding that the most important motivation is intrinsic, internal, self-motivation, it is utterly vital for us to put right at the center of our thinking. Because it's easy to think that, if somebody does well, say well done. And if they do badly, say, you did badly. All right, that's sometimes useful. Doesn't make a lot of difference in some ways. You can give people bonuses. That's always welcome. Or, those things do not massively sort of shift the needle on people's engagement with their work. If somebody's disengaged from their work and the boss goes, well done, they're going to sort of shrug and go, thanks. Doesn't matter to them very much. If somebody's desperate for work and for a job and really likes it, and the boss says you did badly, it's simply going to create fear, which is going to inhibit creativity, inhibit the ability to sort of work with freedom and flexibility. Understanding that the most useful thing you can do is enable your staff to become self-motivated. That's what shifts the dial. Now, noticing what your staff are doing and praising them and supporting them is really useful. Making sure your staff are validated to the general public, that might actually just be other people in the office, but making sure that people are recognized and validated is really useful. But if you want your staff to buy into your company, buy into your business, actually commit themselves, then you need to create ways for them to become self-motivated and self-validating. So here's a sort of an idea. If you have a staff member who is doing well, rather than just say, well done, you're doing well, see if you can find a way to let them take more responsibility for their own choices. See if you can actually give them more agency. Basically say, look, you're doing well. You have earned my trust. How would you do your job better? How would you improve the system that we're working in? What can you change in the way things are being done here? Because you've earned it. You've proved that you're good at your job. You've got knowledge. In other words, allow people space to develop agency in their work, and you are giving them space to develop self-motivation. if they develop self-motivation, they are more likely to buy into the job, and you're more likely to have a team that sticks together. You're not going to have people resigning just because somebody's offering more money, because they'll go, sure, I get $20 extra from that job, but this job, I'm really having a ball in it. And you have a team that sticks together over time. And that's the real deciding factor about whether your company is going to move ahead of the competition. Have you got a team who are running alongside you going, let's do this? Or have you got a team who are going, yeah, sorry, I've just learned the job, but somebody else is offering better money, so I'm going to resign. I can't be bothered. I don't like it here. Which one's going to turn the dial for your company? It's longevity, self-motivation, a feeling not only of being valued and seen, but of being trusted.
So you made a reference to agency a couple times. Explain to us what that means.
For me, what it means is that people get to make decisions about their own work. They are not simply following tick boxes or checklists or protocols that are imposed on them by other people. People get to have the freedom to make choices. And I would suggest that the more experienced somebody has become in a job, and the more they have proven their ability to do the job, the more they should be trusted and treated like adults to be able to take over some control for their job. That's what I mean by agency. There's another little piece of research. I saw this many years ago, and so the research is probably a long way out of date by now. It's probably a couple of decades old. But you may well know it. That the researchers were asking, what's the relationship between motivation and pay level, and what's the relationship between happiness and pay level? And they basically said that the more you get paid, the happier you are, up until a certain level. And back when they did the research, that level wasn't very high. It was about 100,000 US a year. That's not a massive amount of money. The more you got paid, up to about 100,000 US a year, the happier you got. Somebody on 80,000 was generally happier than somebody on 20,000. Above 100,000, what turned the dial on happiness was not money, it was agency. How much control and freedom people felt they had, flexibility people felt they had within their job. That was actually what made the difference. Now, the figures are out of date for sure, but I don't think the psychology is.
So let's step out the doors of the workplace. So how does agency apply to real life?
It's an idea that we get to make choices and take responsibility for the outcomes of our choices. I think of it very much about as being treated like a grown-up. When you're 12, you do what your mum and dad says. When you're an office junior, you do what the boss says. But by the time you're 20, you don't want your mum and dad saying, oh no, you've got to be in by a certain time. You've got to do that. You've grown up. Same in a workplace. You want to feel like you are being treated like you're an adult. In your own life, most of us, not all, but most of us want to feel we have the freedom to make choices about who we love, who our friends are, where we go on holiday, the sort of clothes we wear. This is the basic texture of life. And that's what I mean by agency. It's that thing of feeling that you have earned the right to take some control over your life. And I don't really mind whether that, for me, it's the same thing, whether that's control over your relationships, control over what you choose to believe, control over your politics, or control within the confines of your work.
I absolutely love this. So now let's re-enter the workplace. So now, how can you convince a business owner or manager that is necessary and relevant today?
Well, I think it's not tremendously hard to see what's not working. If a lot of the workplaces where people do not have agency are not permitted to work towards self-motivation, are continually working within a micromanaged control and command sort of hierarchical structure, a lot of those places are suffering because people are leaving. People are saying, I don't want this anymore. People got used to flexible working. People got used to going, if there's going to be pandemics coming and disrupting life all the time, do I really want to work in a miserable job, and never be able to afford to buy a house and all of this stuff? Why wouldn't I rather try to find a job that isn't miserable? I may still not be able to afford a house, but at least do something that isn't miserable. We can see what's not working. You said at the beginning, post-pandemic, there are a lot of questions being asked. So then one says to a business owner, why did you want to set up a business, really? And you're likely to get answers along the lines of, I had a vision of something I wanted to do. I wanted to be responsible for myself. I wanted to be the boss of my work. I get that. I'm a small business person. I don't like other people forcing me to do things I don't want to do. I want to make choices. Why on earth do you think your staff wouldn't want the same thing? And you might go, well, to hell with them, I don't care. But if you think to hell with your staff, I don't care, then you are basically asking them to leave as soon as they get a better offer. But if you can say, I am actually now in charge of my work, and you want to work for my company, great. I'm going to give you as much control as possible. So even though this is my company, I want you to feel like it's your job. I want you to feel that you are an entrepreneur within the confines of the role that you're fulfilling in this company. Your staff want pretty much the same as you do. We're all slightly different, not exactly the same, but pretty much we want to feel that we're on the scoreboard, we're noticed and we're validated. We want to know that we're respected. We want to have the freedom to make choices. And when we come to know stuff, like, the person who's been sitting on the front desk in your, 30-person business and who sees stuff, the way customers come in, whatever, that person knows stuff that you don't know because you're not there. That person would like to be treated like an expert in her role. You know why? Because she is an expert in her role. She wants to be treated for what she is. So when your janitor or your front desk person or the salesperson or the HR person come to you and say, I've got an idea. You're being talked to by an expert. Listen. You're an expert at running your business, but you're not an expert at all the parts of the business. So it's trying to put basic human intelligence back into the structures of running businesses.
So let's jump right on that scoreboard now. What are the outcomes that an individual, that staff person, can see and feel?
They're seen, they're respected, they're treated like they are not just a cog in a machine, but are a contributor to the success of the business. If you find the right way to do it, they will offer you innovations that will make your business more efficient or more customer facing, or they will create processes of collaboration within your business if you give them space to do it, which work a lot better than anything that will come out of an MBA manual from Harvard, because it will be living systems that grow from real people interacting with each other. You will have a team that will grow together. and will grow in mutual respect. You will have a company which, when your staff go out in the evenings, they're not going to roll their eyes and go, God, I can't wait. I can't wait till Friday. I hate it there. They'll be saying it's a cool place to work, so that when you advertise, you're going to get good people wanting to work for you. You'll have longevity in your team. There is no downside to treating people like humans. Doesn't mean they get to do whatever they want. You still maintain the role of saying, look, we need to achieve this. We're not achieving this. But it takes the humility it takes a level of humility in the boss to go, we're not achieving this. Rather than me telling you how to achieve it, I would like to ask you how you think we can achieve it. I'll still make the final decisions. That's my job. Your job's sitting on the front desk. Your job is selling to customers. My job is making strategic decisions. But I'm going to make those based on tapping into the freedom and expertise of the people that I am collaborating with in this business.
So now let's go to the other side of that equation, the owner and manager. What's their scoreboard going to look like now that they've created that agency approach and culture within the company?
Oh, there's no guarantees to anything, is there? You can't say do this and you'll get that. But the most likely outcome of shifting mentality from a sort of command and control micromanagement sort of praise and reward system to one where you are really working in collaboration with your colleagues, encouraging them to be self-motivated, self-validating, and all of that. The most likely outcome is that you're going to have a healthy company with which your customers will enjoy doing business. Nobody likes going to, do you like going into a shop and knowing that the shop assistant resents every fiber of your being because they hate that shop and they're just saying, yes, sir, you have a nice day. And you go, you're not thinking that. You want me to be hit by a bus as soon as I leave this. Nobody likes that. We all have experiences where you go into a business and you go, wow, the people here seem actually genuinely to be having a good time. It's a better customer experience. You get better processes, better customer experiences, a better reputation, a nicer place to work. And frankly, and I know this might sound a little bit wet, but I don't care. It means you're being a better person. I think we should be, if I want a scoreboard, on the scoreboard, I want business people who choose to be better people, who go, I am going to do this because, damn me, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. And I love that approach, but also I'm going to go one step deeper, because sometimes the owners and managers, other than a profit and loss statement, they really don't know how to measure their own success. But if they have a team that wants to come to work every day and fulfill that new culture of agency, that's going to have to give the owner and manager that sense of success as well as being the person that made that happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Profit and loss, of course, they're important. They are not the be all and end all. They are one of the measures of the success of a business, an important one, but not the only one. And, if you've got a boss, an owner manager, and she's coming into work and she goes, I have set something up here where my customers are having a really good service and my staff are genuinely glad to be at work. And I know that if I'm going to hit problems, everyone's going to rally around. She should go home and pat herself on the back because she's doing something really, really good. She's serving her customers, her staff, her family, her community. She is part of making the world a better place.
I love it. So, John, you once again fulfilled everything I wanted to on this topic. So leave us with just some small little inspiration, little solution to help this individual manager, business owner, and the employees really think more about adapting this culture of agency within their business?
Okay, two very brief thoughts. One of them I've already sort of mentioned. Do you have a structure or a habit of ensuring that your colleagues in the business, the people who you are employing, know that you see and respect them, know that you see and respect them, know that you want them to thrive, and when they are struggling, you will support their growth rather than punish them? So in other words, people feel validated as humans by you who's in the position of authority. Do you have that? And do you similarly have structures where you publicly and unapologetically validate, praise, and notice people's work to everybody else? So that you have a culture where, if you've got somebody who's getting on with their work, let's just say, the janitor or the person who's responsible for doing the filing, that it is clear that you are respecting them, talking to them like a human, and sometimes making sure everyone else knows what a good job they're doing, and that without them, everybody else would be suffering. In other words, is your scoreboard there for everybody? The other thing that I would just suggest is, do your colleagues know, or your employees know, what you really value in them? Sometimes we just get caught up on how are they doing their job. But in any functioning team, there are many, many other things happening than just people doing their jobs. Do they know that you value this person because they're the one who, if you get a new employee who comes in, they're always the one who goes, if you've got any problems, love, come to me? Do you know that you value this person because you know that they will always stay a little longer if there's a problem to be sorted out? Do you know that does somebody know that you value them because when there's a crisis or there's tension, they'll make a joke and diffuse the crisis? Do your staff know the non-performance related things that you really value in them, so that they know you see them as a rounded human, not as a cog in a profit and loss account? And can you reward them by giving them more and more freedom to make choices about how to do their work? If you're going to see them as a rounded human, can you treat them like a rounded human? So saying, you're doing your job brilliantly, or you're doing your job well, or you're hitting targets, or whatever it is. Can you follow that up with the question, do you have any ideas for how you could do that? We could do that better. Is there anything I can do to support you to do that better? What do you have any ideas that, because you're seeing things that I'm not? Can you start treating them like experts in their field, letting them know they're valued, that they are treated as a human, and that their insights and expertise are valued?
John, great closing remarks. I can't thank you enough for being my guest speaker again. And as promised, I'm going to have plenty more podcasts with you. But thank you. And if someone out there listens to this and wants to learn more about how you can help them and their organization, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, I'm running a workshop at the beginning of April, weekend intensive workshop looking at personal and professional transformation. It's called Purpose, Presence, and Pleasure, 3 guiding principles for personal and professional transformation. People can also go to my website, which is www.johnbritton.co, just co. And you can find out about Self with Others there. If people are interested in, working with me or my April workshop, just email me, john@johnbritton.co. I always reply to messages, and I really love people who, much like I've been saying in this conversation, I really like people who go, I've had thoughts, I've had ideas, because everybody's an expert in something, and I want to find out as much as I can.
Absolutely. Well, John, once again, thank you.
Thanks for inviting me on, Roger. I really appreciate it.
My podcast wouldn't be the same if it wasn't for my sponsors and my great supporters. So let me take this opportunity to thank each and every one of them. First of all, I want to thank Rebecca at Custom Bookkeeping and Accounting, delivering trustworthy bookkeeping services since 2003. Dave and Dara at Virtues Matter, making this world a much happier place to be with their Virtues card apps, coaching, and workshops. Stephen at Buller Accounting, giving business owners depth and insight to their numbers. Eric and his team at Ivy Cat Web Design, the real superheroes of web development and design. Jennifer and Jean at the Seavers Real Estate Team, serving Pierce and Kitsap counties with their home buying and selling needs. Maury at the Maury Method, the world's only brainwave entrainment engineer, helping everyone have more clarity, less stress, and overall better brain health. Priya at Pivot My Profit, helping individuals and businesses have better control of their finances and more money at the end of their day. Melissa at the Soul Vibe Energy High, the queen of the aha moments, helping individuals find those holes in their cups, repair the hole, and gain back their positive energy. And finally, Rick at West Sound Recording. You talk, they do all the rest. Thank you, Rick, for all your efforts with the production and editing of my podcast.